Great workplaces offer many things: challenging work, groovy people. Some of them have foosball. Some of them have benefits, and maybe that's health and dental. Maybe it is something related to retirement savings. Now, in today's day and age, do not be thinking you're going to have a defined benefit pension, because that's super rare. But there are other ways to do it. It's just that not all employees do. They work at workplaces who don't necessarily have that kind of thing. And there's a lot of hurdles for workplaces to set up some sort of a savings program. Alex Mazur has put some thought into this question. He is co-founder and CEO of Commonwealth, and he has a suggestion here for what he's calling a small employer retirement plan tax credit. He joins us now to talk about this idea. Alex, hello there.
Great to be here. Thanks, Bruce.
So, first, frame the problem here. It is not ubiquitous that workplaces offer any sort of retirement savings program. How few employers are able to offer something, or said another way, how many don't?
So the problem is basically almost 10 million Canadians don't have access to a workplace retirement plan, whether that's a group RSP or a registered pension plan. So it's a big portion of the workforce. If you look at it from an employer perspective, and you take there's about 500,000 employers with between 5 and 500 employees in Canada, and only about 1 in 5 have a retirement plan at work.
Wow. So is it accurate to say that one of the areas in which the issue is most severe are employers with fewer staff?
That's the focus. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
primarily coverage for retirement plans is primarily an issue for small and mid-size employers. And that's probably the biggest weakness that we have in our retirement system here in Canada is the lack of coverage among that
Right.
size of employers, whether it's a small
Small
business or
companies,
a nonprofit,
right. Small companies, but in aggregate, big employers. They employ a lot of people.
where
Yeah.
most Canadians work.
So you're proposing something you're calling a small employer retirement plan tax credit. What does this look like?
It's basically a carrot or an incentive to help reduce some of the burden of setting up a retirement plan. It's often less expensive and less complicated than employers think, but perceived cost and perceived complexity is the biggest barrier. So this tax credit would give people basically a discount on setting up the cost of setting up a group retirement plan. We estimate that it would save a typical employer about 40% of the cost, primarily reducing the cost of providing those matching contributions, which are such an important part of a group retirement plan, about a 40% reduction over the first 3 years. Two components to it. It would help offset the cost of setting up a plan, and it would also provide a credit of up to $1,000 to support employer contributions or matching into the plan for a total of 3 years. And it's really for employers that are setting up a plan for the first time.
Right. And that $1,000 per employee.
That's correct.
Right. So to seed whatever that match is, if it could be a dollar amount in absolute, it could be a percentage, but there'd be $1,000 from the government. As the policy wonks chew through this kind of thing, and you'd have to make a big assumption on uptake by employers, what is the broad range on the dollar value commitment from the federal government?
So in the paper, we estimate it would cost between $1 and $2 billion over 5 years, which is obviously not a small number, but you have to put things in perspective. Retirement is a pretty expensive policy area. So
Yeah.
the old age security is the most expensive program of the federal government. Accounts for almost 1 out of every $5 the federal government spends. So this would be less than 1% of the cost of old age security. And it might even reduce some of the cost pressures on some of these big federal government programs by encouraging people to save more on their own with the help of their employer.
Yeah, the knock on OAS is that the ceiling is quite high. So you can easily make six figures and still qualify for a benefit that I don't think was originally designed to support those at the higher income levels. So that case seems relatively easy to make. What has reception been like in Ottawa? Are they interested in this kind of thinking, or are you like, standing in front of Parliament Hill, beating a drum and handing out hot dogs?
Well, I think it's early days. The proposal just came out over the winter, but it's garnered quite a bit of media attention, quite a bit of attention from industry groups that are looking to grow the industry. And I would say that it's hard to find a public policy that helps business helps the middle class, and may even over time reduce, pressures on government expenses. We think this is one of those policies, and we think it could appeal to people across the political spectrum. Whether you're a conservative who's worried about helping small business and reducing government cost pressures, or you're more of a progressive that wants to help lower and middle income people build that wealth and reduce wealth inequality. We think there's something in it for both of those groups.
I understand. It's very simple for me to understand trying to offset the company match part. I understand that part. Talk more about the costs of setting up a plan. Are these hard costs or soft costs?
I think it depends. A lot of employers do like to get some advice and guidance when they're setting up a plan, to make sure that they're selecting the right provider, coming up with the right plan design, doing the right education as they're rolling out their plan to their employees so they get maximum value. So it's, the proposal is, the government would cover up to $5,000 per year over the first 3 years to make sure the plan is set up and rolled out in a responsible way. There are some new regulations that have come in that we think are a good thing, called the Capital Accumulation Plan Guidelines, to make sure that proper education, good value for money, all those things are done well. But when employers are looking to set these things up, they often need a little bit of assistance on those things. And so the tax credit would help offset some of those costs.
A two-part disclosure here. Your organization offers something called the Common Good Plan, so and especially customized to employers with fewer than 500 employees. Credit Canada works with Common Good, and this is something that we have rolled out for our organization successfully, by the way. Say more about what this means for your organization. We'll just park to the side that, of course, you have skin in the game and you're not fully objective here. What would it mean for you to have more employers who were had this prompt, had this catalyst to do this?
Well, today there are about 90,000 group retirement plans in Canada. We think that number could be double that if we had a credit like this over time. In the US, in Canada, as I mentioned, it's about 1 in 5 employers between 5 and 500 employees have a plan. In the US, it's about half. So it's a very competitive labor market down there, and about half offer a 401k. So if we get to those levels, we'd be creating 100,000 plus new group retirement plans. Today, our organization, we're growing fast. We added 500 new plans last year. We're right. We do have skin in the game, serving both small business and not-for-profits like yourself. We're serving about 1,700 employers. But that's still a pretty small portion of the potential overall market. So I think what it would look like is us and other providers, because the credit would be open to all different types of providers and plan types, just serving many more, onboarding many more small and mid-sized employers, which are really the heart of the Canadian economy.
Commonwealth is an interesting funding model in that you're connected to philanthropic funders, like people who actually want to do good with their money. There's also a lot of players in this space who are purely for profit. Like, this is what they do, this is what they sell. What has your engagement been with other people who have similar roles as yours, but in a very pure for-profit context?
Well, we are a for-profit business. We have a lot of investors and stakeholders, and we ourselves are very mission driven in the work that we're doing. So, I think we do take a different approach than other providers in the market in terms of how we're set up. I would say that the industry reception has generally been good because I think everyone is looking for ways to grow this market. And people are optimistic about it, whether they're retirement plan advisors and consultants, whether there are other carriers that are interested in this market and more are getting interested in it, or whether they're employers who just would like a little bit of an assist in providing a better benefit for their employees. So generally a good reception. Whether others are prioritizing it as much as we are, I think probably depends on their degree of focus on the small and mid-sized segment. We're laser focused on it. That's who we want to serve. Many of the older providers, are more focused on that large employer, right? That's where the bulk of their assets are and the bulk of their business is. So maybe a little bit of less interest to those groups, but at the end of the day, if we can grow the industry together, I think that's probably in everybody's interest.
Really interesting stuff. Alex, thanks for joining us to talk about this today.
Thanks, Bruce. Appreciate the time.
Alex Mazer, co-founder and CEO of Commonwealth, and he's got a pretty big idea here. It is called the Small Employer Retirement Plan Tax Credit, and I think we're going to be hearing more about this. Maybe some folks in Ottawa might want to take his calls.